Do you know who Max Yerby is?
No, I do not.
Okay. So Max Yerby is a 15-year-old with a rare progressing blood disorder, and he needs a stem cell transplant to prevent it from becoming a deadly cancer. Now, here's the thing. His blood type, or more specifically his stem cell type, is so incredibly rare that his father has started a campaign to try to find a human match. And through this campaign, they've tested over 40 million global donors. So many people that I'm sure that a good portion of the live stream viewers have at least heard of this service before. You could go to Max's website and request a blood test to see if you match his stem cell type. And out of the 40 plus million global donors that they've checked so far, there hasn't been a single one of them who have been a perfect match. Okay? But here's the question. Assuming that you were to send in a blood sample to Max's dad tomorrow, and it came back that you were the only perfect match alive, and only your stem cells, okay, could prevent Max Uribe from dying from cancer, okay, do you think that you should be legally obligated to give Max your stem cells, even if in giving Max your stem cells, you had to be connected to Max for 9 months straight? Being connected to Max for 9 months straight to save his life would induce very serious mental and physical pains, traumas, and stressors. And there's even around a 3 to 5% chance that being connected to Max at some point would kill you within the next 9 months.
So, hello everyone. Um, I've seen this clip before, I think, of something very similar, and this is of course a discussion about abortion, and I just wanted to address this particular clip because, as I said, I've seen it before, and in this case it leads to a person changing their mind about abortion. And I really do not wish to go into the pro-life, pro-choice discussion, but what I do want to point out is that I think this video clip demonstrates kind of rhetorical trickery, or basically not necessarily rhetorical trickery, but there's a false analogy that leads to a person changing their mind about this quite an important topic. And I just want this video to be highlighting that false analogy and being a bit of a warning, because this is so easy to make mistakes based on these false analogies. I'm not at all attacking the person appearing in this video, and I'm not even sure how necessarily intentional this false analogy is, because it's so easy to get things wrong. So let's get started. Now, a good example is the very famous trolley problem, and I think one of the simplest, I mean, there are thousands of different forms of that problem. Well, not necessarily thousands, but many different forms of formulations of that problem. And I think the basic form is that you have you are standing by a railway. There's a trolley approaching a fork, and one branch of the fork will lead to a person being tied to the rail, only one person, and then in the other branch of the fork there will be 5 people. Whoever devised the situation is, I don't know, and why it's so brutal, but it's quite important because it has to be related to life and death, because I think it's specific. There's something specific about death itself that requires such a subtle consideration that, unfortunately, as sort of gloomy as it is, death is the thing that we have to be talking about, in my opinion. But yeah, so this is kind of a light-hearted example in the sense that you just now need to decide which branch of the fork the trolley takes. And I think most people, I don't know, I don't have the survey data at hand now, but I've understood that most people without much thinking say that, of course, one should turn the switch so that the trolley kills only one person rather than 5. And one wouldn't even hesitate much or have second thoughts. That just seems like the right thing to do. But if we take an alternative version of the same problem, basically, and this is not my example either, I don't remember where I've seen it, but I'm sure you'll find it easily, that now instead of the guy with the railway switch, you are now a doctor. And on your table, there in the tray, you have the patient notes of 5 patients, 5 terminally ill patients. Each of them are going to die. But then, you as a doctor, you remember you used to have a patient whose notes you have in your hand in this picture, who is now completely healed, completely healthy, in good shape. But that person happens to be just the right type, blood type, or whatever, so that he could be an organ donor to those 5 people. And if he gave his organs to those 5 people would live. But the bad thing is that this patient, who is now completely healthy, can't survive without those organs that he would have to donate to the 5 people. So from this doctor's point, it's exactly like in the original trolley problem. You decide, is it the one healthy patient that walks away alive, or is it that he dies and the 5 other people will walk away in good health? Now, this doctor version of this trolley problem, my understanding is that most people are equally certain that in this case the doctor should not kill the one healthy patient, but let the 5 people die if he can't find another donor. So, but essentially it seems that it's still the same problem. It's you, and it's you making the decision between one person dying or 5 people dying. That's when you reduce it to the very core. That's the problem. And yet, almost without hesitation, in these 2 different scenarios, people almost unanimously, without even hesitation, come to the completely opposite conclusions. And I think this is the very nature of death, how subtle and or not, let's put it in a more positive way, about life, how in a weird way subtle the sort of the sanctity of human life really is. Now, this whole discussion about the trolley problem has actually nothing to do with the original video clip. But like I said, my point is here just to emphasize, the whole point of this video is to highlight and emphasize how careful you have to be with these analogies when it comes to life and death. And I hope this example with the trolley problem has demonstrated it. But now let's have a look at where does the false analogy in the video clip arise from. And basically, when you think about it, it seems that the difference there that causes the false analogy is that in the case of abortion, we're talking about causing a death, causing the death of the fetus. But in this other case, with a boy developing the cancer, what we are doing is not saving a life. And when I was thinking about this causing death versus not saving a life, it actually reminded me that I several years ago, I bought this book by Jonathan Glover called Causing Death and Saving Lives, which, like I said, it's been a long time since I read it, and I think I didn't even finish it. So again, I want to be very transparent. So I might be sort of I don't know what the conclusion of Jonathan Glover is, but I can certainly I've read enough by Jonathan Glover that I will definitely recommend the book for everyone. And I should say, especially if you're interested in thinking about abortion, I noticed now browsing the book that he has several chapters about abortion in this book. So I would certainly say this is an excellent read for all the interested people, and I'm starting to think I should pick up the book myself again and finish it for once. But anyway, I looked at the very beginning, and I think it was the very beginning of the first chapter where the following text is taken. He says, "Can we formulate any general principles to tell us which acts of killing, if any, are right and which are wrong? Are there any general principles to tell us when, if ever, it is morally obligatory to save life? Doctors often say that in difficult cases they act on the principle, 'Thou shalt not kill, but needs not strive officiously to keep alive.' But why is there thought to be a moral difference between killing someone and intentionally failing to save his life? So it's this very last sentence here that is crucial for this video clip. Obviously, it doesn't give an answer, and I'm not sure, like I said, I should read the book again, or resume reading the book, I should say. But the point I'm making here is that this text already acknowledges that there is a moral difference between killing someone and intentionally failing to save one's life. And that's exactly what I think is where the false analogy in this clip arises. One is about killing a person, the other one is not saving a person's life. And that's really what one needs to consider. Now, like I said, I'm not going any further to this pro-life, pro-choice discussion. I'm not sufficiently well prepared for that kind of a discussion, I would say. And my purpose here, obviously, you can see I'm sort of arguing against a pro-choice argument, so you might think I'm pro-life in that sense, but it's much more subtle than that. But like I said, the point here is that when you are in these discussions and people come with various analogies of the situation, it may seem that there's a good analogy offered for abortion. And if that makes you change your mind, I'm not saying the analogy is necessarily wrong, and it can be either way, one way or the other. I'm not even taking any position on that. If someone comes with an analogy that makes you think seriously changing your mind about this, that you've already sort of carefully thought and made up your mind, do spend a bit of time thinking very carefully, why is it that now all of a sudden I want to change my mind? Obviously, I'm not saying never to change your mind. Of course, if the analogy is convincing enough, you should change your mind, because careful consideration will lead to the truth. So that's absolutely fine. I'm not suggesting to be stubbornly holding your ground in this sense. But I am really emphasizing the importance of spending a bit of time on carefully thinking, why is it that based on this analogy I'm now all of a sudden prepared to change my mind about this. God bless you all.